Hello everybody, welcome to another art stream. This is going to be less of a lecture and it's going to be more of like an exploration of the topic. Um, I wasn't quite fully prepared, full disclosure, to make a presentation, so I'm going to probably be swapping back and forth from Clip Studio Paint to my web browser and Wikipedia to kind of show you, I don't know, kind of how my research process works, so you can see that a little bit, and maybe hopefully along the way we'll learn a couple of things about like feet and claws and tails that can help you as an artist, you know? Or at least be a starting point on your own kind of study for this type of thing. So yeah, so let's go ahead and get started with the foot, I guess. So like right here, I've drawn kind of a simple human foot. And I was just talking about this with Fluffle, that like the general shapes of things like from the outside uh, can kind of betray the complexities that lie underneath it. Like a foot is like it's it's a collection of forms, and like when you're first like attempting to draw feet, a lot of people will draw like the blobs or the boxes or something like that. You know, you've probably done that as a kid where you're like, oh, I'm gonna draw these boxes that kind of represent, you know, human feet. You know, and that's all good, all well and good, but when you're actually getting down to like forms, it's a lot more complex because there are tons of bones in the feet. So yeah, let me go ahead and look at. I can point out a couple of things that I found that I thought were neat. Um, and I hope I'm not just like simply reading from Wikipedia here, but oh, this is gonna have to switch on that too. I didn't even think of that. Well, okay. The Discord stream and the YouTube thing will be different. We shall see how this all turns out. Alright, so I'm gonna change my windows. It's gonna go to. Why isn't it pulling that up? Because it's minimized. There we go. Alright, I'll change it. Woohoo! Alright, so here, there. Can you see that? It did not change. Why did it not change? Change. Can that change? Why is it not changed? You guys are definitely not seeing my browser window, right? Because my little preview is still showing Clip Studio. Ah, shoot. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can. Restarting helps a little bit. Why is that not coming up? Discord does not want to share that. Alright. Huh. If I pull that up, it will. Huh. Okay. Sorry about that. Well, it's a bit of a snafu there. Alright. I'm not going to drag everyone along. I'll just kind of read some of what I got here. So, apparently the screen share is not going to play well with Discord here. So, we're just going to continue. Yeah, I'm trying to stream the application. It wouldn't switch over to Chrome though, so I don't know why it's not gonna do that for me. But whatever. All right. So the human foot. Reading from Wikipedia here. So this is the Wikipedia article on foot. Structure. The human foot is a strong and complex mechanical structure containing 26 bones, 33 joints, and more than 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments. The joints of the foot are the ankle and the subtalar joint and the interphalangeal articulations of the foot. Wow, that's a lot of multisyllabic words there. An anthropometric study of 1,197 North American adult Caucasian males found that a man's foot length was 26.3 centimeters with a standard deviation of 1.2 centimeters. So there you go, the human structure of the foot, at least from the North American Caucasian perspective, I guess. I'm so sorry, there's so much more, but there we go, that's what the article says. Yeah, so the foot can be subdivided into the hind foot, the midfoot, and the forefoot. So the hind foot, I'll come back here to Clip Studio Paint to kind of stuff. So like the hind foot is going to be this general area. Here, let me do a new layer over it so that I'm not screwing it up. So the hind foot's going to be this area. The midfoot's going to be this area right about here. And then the forefoot's going to be the rest of this area. So you can divide it into those regions. And then to share a bit of a drawing tip at the same time. Here, let me go back to the sketch layer. So if you're drawing a human foot, you can draw like kind of a long rectangular box, and you can play with like the proportions of this rectangle or whatever. But if you subdivide it into approximately 4 categories, so like this is one way to divide it into 3 categories. You can also divide it into 4. This big 4th category, you can often put your big toe is going to be up there, and then obviously your heel is going to be back here. And then if your big toe is here, your archway, like for like your footprint, is you're going to have this 4-foot area. It's going to be approximately shaped like this, and then the arch is going to be on your 3rd. So like if you're dividing this into 4 boxes, the arch is going to be primarily what you see in the 3rd, and on the inside it's going to share where the big toe is, and then you can just write more of that, and that's add more of the toes, and boom, you've got yourself kind of a humanish looking footprint, you know, or a kind of diagram from like either, you know, you could take this as like a top angle potentially, you know, if you're drawing things from above. You can just kind of erase those underlines, and there you've got kind of like a proto foot type of thing. So there's a little bit of a drawing tip there. So like we've got, you know, one big toe, and then the smaller toes are obviously going to like move in that direction generally, sloping down. And so it's going to be the opposite for the opposite foot, of course. So like, yeah. So there, if you're drawing kind of like a humanoid plantigrade foot, that's a way to do it. I unfortunately don't have an easy way to draw like an animal foot there, but there's some kind of basic structure of the foot. So let me take kind of this image. Here, I'll paste this here. I'm just gonna steal this straight from Wikipedia, because they can't stop me. So that you can see kind of the inner structure of the foot. Are you seeing that? Okay, I hope you're seeing that. Yeah. All right. Cool. And I think I would stream the screen. I'm just sensitive to other people's information, and I do want to receive pings at the same time, so I turned Discord stream information off. Like, not that I don't trust any of you guys, but But anyway, I'm just gonna continue streaming this, but it's okay. We'll be all right. All right. So yeah, for here for the structure of the foot, we can see that there are a number of bones here. I believe the article said that there were 33 bones. Is that correct? 26 bones, excuse me, 33 joints. Okay, so there's going to be, let's see here, your talus, your calcaneus is going to be like the bottom heel area of your foot, and the talus is going to be kind of like a foot cap area, and it is beneath the tibia and the fibula. You can, and those are like, those are your lower leg bones, so those go up into the knee. And one good way to remember the two bones, you've got the tibia and the fibula. The fibula is the smaller one, and so if you tell a small little fibula, it's not a huge deal. But yeah, that's the stupid way that I remember that. But yeah, so there are the tibia and the fibula, and so like your entire ankle joint is comprised of this meeting of the calcaneus of the heel and the talus, and then up we've got let's see here, tarsals. Yeah, so all of these bones right here, those are considered. Let me go ahead and change colors so that you can see what I'm pointing to. So these kind of unlabeled bones right here, so these are the tarsals. And then they pointed out the metatarsals and the phalanges. So the phalanges being like the small bits, so to speak. So all of these bits. So you got your tarsals, which are your tiny ones. There are a couple of those. You got your metatarsals. You have as many of those as you have toes, and then you've got your phalanges, which are the wiggly bits, the really wiggly bits, I should say, because the metatarsals and tarsals are more structural, and they don't tend to flex as much. So yeah, there's the human plantigrade foot from like a structural perspective. So I will let's move from the human foot and see if we can find an example of. I'm gonna pull in an example of dog anatomy here. In just a moment. That did not take me to the place where I thought it was going to take me. Okay, here. Here we go. I'll copy this image, and I'll throw it down here. Oh my goodness! Why did it do that? That's strange. Okay. Okay, hang on. I will pull this up in just a moment, guys. Forgive me for my... Okay, and now my tablet is not responding. Don't know why. Bam! Let me grow that out so you can see it. Alright. So here we've got, a dog skeleton, and it's broken into a bunch of different pieces here. Why is this not working? Oh, crap. Sorry, guys. I didn't realize this was gonna break on me. God damn it. Excuse me. Tablet driver is not responding. Fantastic. Okay. Alright, whatever. I'll do this with a mouse. We're just reviewing stuff anyways. Alright. So we can see kind of like a weird kind of symmetry in both the forelegs and the back legs, if we're talking about foot paws specifically, we've got the pelvic structure bone right here, and then it has a tibia, it has a femur, tibia, and fibula as well, calcaneus. So many of the things that we covered from human anatomy have direct animal parts as well. It's just that they're shaped and arranged slightly differently because our evolutionary paths were different. So, yeah. So let me zoom into this just a little bit more here so we can kind of focus. And then I think I'll bring back this image to kind of, nope, not that one. This one. Can you show me where that one is? Can you bring this entire thing out and not just hit center, please? Okay. Right up here. Okay, and we can see that that all of the same bones, are going to be present because like our forms are generally like mammalian, we're both mammals, dogs and humans alike. So they also have the phalanges with the claws, with the addition of the claws. So these will be the kind of phalangeal area, and then this lower part of the leg is going to be the metatarsals area. And so the calcaneus is right here. We can see that it's got the exact, it's got a similar placement. Things are changed very, very little here. So in this entire lower joint, this isn't, when we think about like furry legs or digitigrade legs, so to speak, they're not plantigrade. We got to remember that this part that pokes back is not a reversed knee. It is the calcaneus of our heel is the most apt comparison. So yeah. So they've got the metatarsals, which comprise most of the length here. And then they've got the tarsals and the calcaneus, which comprise this kind of heel-y looking joint. And then we've got the big old... can we not do that, please? All right. And so we've got the big tibia, the little fibula. It's never bad to tell a little fibula. Yeah, it depends. But anyways, so those... these are not aligned, obviously. Don't get confused, because these are not aligned. This is obviously the pelvic area, not the fibula. So, yeah. So we've got the upper and lower parts of the pelvis, the femur, and so forth. These are the structural components. And if you want to know where like a dog's knees are, it's going to be in this big meatier part of the haunches, so to speak. So we've got the leg that the fur covers a whole bunch of like the skin portion, right? And it's obviously you're not going to see a whole lot of bone structure underneath fur. It's only going to be like those most prominent bits that stick out, like the back of the heel here, the calcaneus area here. But yeah, once you get up into like the meatier areas, this is where like a lot of beginner furry artists will just kind of draw a big old blob here. And I won't lie, I'm guilty of that too sometimes, just, drawing a big old like leg blob and just kind of saying like, there's bone somewhere in there. But yeah, it's better to know the structure that underlies these types of things. So yeah, there we go. So there's a bit of like a comparison between the human foot and an animal hind paws, so to speak. And we can also see that there are kind of some similarities between the hind paws and the forepaws here. I think whenever you're drawing furries, though, I guess I should say ferals in this instance, that there's going to be this kind of like symmetry, this mirrored symmetry. So like there's the shoulder bone right here, and then the pelvic bone right here, kind of go in the opposite directions. So let me see here to kind of point that out. I'm using my mouse now. So that tilts that way, that tilts this way, and then the humerus of the foreleg is going to tilt that way, and the femur is going to tilt the opposite way. So we can see this kind of zigzag, mirrored zigzag pattern emerging. So just keep that in mind. Kind of a mirrored zigzag to begin with. On the forelegs, it continues to it kind of straightens out, which can make it appear like one big old long bone type of thing. But we got to remember that there are as opposed to the tarsals of the foot, there are carpals in the front paw area. So those are going to be the carpals, and they have kind of like a heely bit of their own, but it's not nearly as pronounced as on the rear legs. So yeah, so they've got the carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges, which comprise the digits, which make them digitigrade. They walk on their toes, or what would be our toes, so to speak, but are just their feet to them. Anyway, yeah. So that's all neat and interesting to notice, I hope. Let's see here. So moving on to our next bit. Claws. So let me pull up a couple of resources about that. So claws, I pulled up a couple of things about this. So claws are curved, pointed appendages found at the end of a toe or finger in most amniotes, which includes mammals, reptiles, and birds. Some invertebrates, such as beetles and spiders, have similar fine hooked structures at the end of the leg or tarsus. So that would be an insect example. I could pull up this image, but that's kind of gross. I don't know if I want to pull up that image because I don't like bugs so much. Maybe some of you like bugs. I don't like those big electron microscope scannings of small, like, little insects. Oh, they just freak me out. They're so alien. But yeah, so let me pull up this example here, though, so that you can see it. And just kind of paste it over everything. So in this photo, we've got a retractable claw of a cat, which is being pushed out, by the thumb here. So we can see the curved structure, and it ends in a tip. And claws can be used for, raking at prey. They can be used for digging. They find all sorts of uses in the animal world. But what you can see on this one is that it's that curved, kind of flattened cone structure. So if you're thinking of a cone, like a party hat, you have to both flatten that cone and warp and curve it, and that's a general claw shape. So yeah, it helps to be able to imagine that. And of course there's the fur that encompasses it, and the retractable claws of cats. Not all animals have retractable claws, of course, but cats are a very interesting example because theirs do retract. So they walk on the pads of their feet, and they have their claws retracted, and they can extend them for when they want to rake and hook prey. And then they're retracted so that they can walk silently. But yeah, so claws are going to emerge from a fleshy bit. You can see on the inside of the claw there's a little bit of blood and fleshy bit there. If you're a pet owner, you know that in order to take care of your pets or your cats, you might need to trim their claws every once in a while. And so it's totally okay to cut off this keratinous part. Which it's made of keratin. It's like hair, it's like fur. It doesn't hurt to cut that off, but we definitely want to make sure to keep a safe distance away from this pink part, because that's where the living blood vessels and tissues are. And if you cut that, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot for your animal or whatnot. But yeah, those are useful points to remember in drawing as well. So that's the most prominent. That's one of the big examples of a claw. So here's another one that comes up on the Wikipedia page, at least. I'm just going to layer that right over it. And again, we'll kind of blow it up. This is the claw of a, oh god, can I pronounce this? Therizinosaurus, among the largest ever recorded claws. So yeah, an example of a dinosaur claw. And its potential configuration. I'm not really sure where it's where the rest of the foot would attach, but we can see that these bony structures, you know, are similar to anything else that we've seen, right? So we've got the phalanges here, and then the bony claws here, and then we've got and then I think these could be considered metatarsals or metacarpals. I don't know whether this is the front or back claw. But yeah, so there's an example of like some of the largest claws ever recorded. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so they just got this this neat structure to them. All right. Next up, and you can also look into spurs, which are similar to claws, but they're more just outgrowths of bone. A spur is an outgrowth of bone covered in a sheath of horn found in various anatomical locations in some animals. Unlike claws or nails, which grow from the tip of the toes, spurs form from other parts of the foot, usually in connection with joints where the toes meet the foot or the foot meets the long bones. Spurs are most commonly found on the hind feet, though some birds possess spurs at the leading edge of the wings. And so there's an example of this. I'll go ahead and put this in here as well. Alright, and this is an example of a bird that has spurs. It is called a masked lapwing, and it's often called the spur-winged plover. And you can see on the leading edge of the wings that it has these spurs clearly visible. Like, let me zoom in a bit. Kind of bring it in there. So yeah, you've got a bird with kind of these claw structures, which is pretty cool. I think that's awesome. I didn't know this bird existed before I tried looking up this stuff related to like claws and spurs and stuff. So yeah, keep a lookout for these structures on animals. They're neat little things that can pop up and surprise you. But yeah, so that's kind of like a general overview of what I've found for like claws and spurs so far. So let me kind of pull up, that will bring us pretty nicely to tails. And I think before I want to talk about tails, I want to talk about vertebral columns in general. So I'm going to bring up this image. Yeesh. We're going to make this one really big. Alright. So the vertebral column is the thing that all vertebrates have in common with each other, and they all generally have these kind of divisions between their spine. So right up next to the neck and the head are going to be the cervical vertebrae. The thoracic vertebrae are going to be where the ribs attach. So depending on how many ribs, they're going to have the same number of thoracic vertebrae. There's the lumbar vertebrae before the rear legs, and then we've got the sacral curve. In humans, this is part of the pelvis, so it's all fused together. So there's the sacral vertebrae, the sacral curve, and the coccyx, the very end of the tailbone here in humans. So like, it looks like a lot, but they have they have very interesting structures, and I suggest to you to go and research those out on your own time. Even just like being able to see like uh, a single vertebrae bone, a single spine bone, can be interesting. And to be able to know, like, oh, hey, this is where the spinal cord runs through the center of all of this stuff, right? And those are the nerve extensions, and that's how, like, the body feels things, which is all pretty cool. So yeah, the vertebral column in humans, of course, that extends to animals as well. I can pull up the old image here. We'll just kind of go back to this one. And so we can see that these have been labeled in the dog skeleton as well, right? So we've got this A area. These are the cervical vertebrae. And then here are the thoracic vertebrae. And then the lumbar. And then we've got the pelvic vertebrae. And then over here in this E section, we have the caudal vertebrae, which compose the tail. And humans obviously don't have this structure. And the caudal vertebrae are very interesting among vertebrates because, like, among mammals in general, or vertebrates in general, I should say, they typically have very similar numbers of these four categories of vertebrates. So, like, if you count them, there are like five or six here, 6 or 7 here, 4 or 5 here, a couple here. And then for the caudal vertebrae, it can be up to like 50 individual segments. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. Tails can be super interesting, and so it goes into a lot of different varieties. And unfortunately, that's not the type of stuff that is easily found on Wikipedia. But yeah, I thought that was super interesting that we have tail structures like this. So sometimes these tail structures, like in this dog here, we can see that the tail structure is very round, and so like there are bits that go all the way to the end. Whereas opposed, if you look at let's see here. If you look at the tails of other creatures, let me pull up this image. Gonna open this one. So let me put this one down. As you can see here, we've got a close-up of an alligator tail, and these tails are much more thick. They have a lot of muscle to them, and they aid the crocodiles in swimming and also kind of thrashing their bodies about. If you've ever seen like how a crocodile like kills its prey, it like rolls around in the water and does a combination of like breaking its bones and drowning it before it eats it, which is super brutal but also super cool in my opinion. I love the scaled varieties. But let me see if I can find excuse me, let me not do that. But I want to see if I can find real quick an example of tailbones. Maybe I can see these better in a dinosaur. Hang on. Can't type with my drawing gloves on. I'm not drawing right now because my tablet decided to crap out on me. Thanks, Wacom. Alright, let me see here. Here we go. Sorry it took so long, but I did find an example. All right, so we can see. Gonna make this one nice and big so that we can see. And again, it breaks up in a similar pattern, you know, like where we see this giant vertebral common column, common column, if I can speak. So we've got and we can see like these aren't, we can divide them in roughly the same way, right? It looks like the T-Rex doesn't have a whole lot of lumbar vertebrae, so we've got a big amount of thoracic vertebrae because the ribs poke out of them, and so those are the thoracic vertebrae. So we've got the cervical, the thoracic. Looks like they may have like one lumbar or something like that, or maybe they don't have lumbar. I don't know so much about that. But then we've got the pelvic region, and then after that we've got the caudal vertebrae, which have these like massive bones, you know, and you know, obviously this is much different than what we see in the dogtail. So yeah, much different between like these tiny kind of like cylindrical looking bones, and then you've got these like massive, like meaty looking structures. Like this was a tail that was used powerfully, had a lot of muscles attached to it. I tend to like that, if you can't tell. But yeah, so let's see here. So let me see. This is going to be kind of awkward since my tablet driver broke on me, but it's going to be like whenever you're drawing like a tail form, you definitely want to establish its core kind of curve first. So you're gonna have the side that's attached to the rump of the creature, you know, whatever it is, and say like if it's gonna be a dog, it's gonna be like all kind of like fuzzy and furry on the outside. There we go. You get to see my mouse drawings. Woo! Mouse drawings by Othisk. Here we go. But yeah, so like whenever you're drawing, like establish that curve first. Uh, you know, and if it's gonna be a furry animal, it's gonna be like all covered in fur, of course. Whereas if it's gonna be a scaled creature, it's gonna have varying thicknesses along its length. And so one of the ways to kind of manage that is to create lines of tapering, to get that tapering thickness, or like that, and tapering just means it comes to a point or it closes to a point. So just draw lines across of it, across that get slightly shorter every time. Eh. But yeah. So that would be one way to kind of like, I'm breaking this into small little bits, and then your outline can kind of go along here. You can have your bigger curves out there. And then you've got something nice and thick. But that follows basically the same kind of curve pattern. So, you know, and just in general, like when you're connecting, I'm sorry, I haven't checked for like questions this whole time. Was there anything that you guys wanted to ask? I'll try and keep an eye on that on the chat. But in the meanwhile, I'll just kind of like share maybe one of my pet peeves when I see people drawing like humanoid forms with tails. Is that I'll see someone. Let's see here. If I'm taking this like tiny skeleton as an example here, and I see someone draw a tail out from a human that comes out like there, from like above, like clearly above where the buttocks area would be, that that kind of annoys me because like you've got this entire structural area where the pelvis so like in humans like the pelvis is fused to the bottom vertebrae, right? They're all together. But the human pelvis does have a tail bone, and so the tail needs to emerge out from beneath it, and it's gonna be placing it right next to the butt, but tails are always right next to butts, so like draw it that way. Like a tail is not separate from the butt; they are very much intertwined. Um, I don't know. That's one of my personal pet peeves. If you like it, feel free to continue liking it. That is definitely not to my taste though. But yeah, so whenever you're drawing a tail, have definitely have some like skeletal reference and kind of say like, okay, where could this naturally kind of emerge from an anthropomorphic body, you know? Because it's just in animals it's just a natural continuation of this big old vertebral column, you know. So yeah, I'm gonna check back for any questions. I don't see any questions, but if you have them, feel free to type them up at any time and ping me for sure. But yeah, so there's kind of like a basic covering of that anyways. um, So you can also think of this like this is kind of like a two-dimensional model here. It can also work in like 3 dimensions. So like say that you come up with some sort of like curve that overlaps itself, right? It comes over here and then it comes back here, right? And then we've got a big old tapering circles. So presume that these are connected, kind of like in that way. And then it tapers. It's going to follow that curve generally. And then if it overlaps itself, you just got to keep in mind where that's going to happen. This would be so much better if my thing didn't crap out on me. I'm so sorry, guys. But yeah, you can just kind of think of big old thick tails as like spiraling cones of sorts. When you're coming at it from like a form perspective, versus if you're oh, I'm drawing that on the rough. Okay. Maybe shouldn't have done that. Okay. We all make mistakes. So there. We get kind of like the form curving back on itself, right? But then if it's curving behind itself, yeah, you want to maintain that kind of idea of thickness. So it comes out. And there's a little bit. But then maybe it comes back behind itself because it's curly for whatever reason. We decided we liked that pose or whatever. Then we've got a tail that goes back into space and overlaps itself, which is pretty complex. This is something that like I have to toy with if I want to try something like this. I typically don't like doing this type of like foreshortening because it kind of flattens the form of the tail. But whatever. Different people have different tastes. You don't have to be like me. Be yourself. Do your own thing in art. Draw tails however you want to. If you don't like them big and thick and you like them thin and fluffy, then go right ahead. Do that to your heart's content. Small question: with long-tailed creatures, orcas, sharks, how would you adapt the anatomy to an anthro body tails that are large relative to the body. Right. So in that case, I'm paying special attention to what's going on with both the original creature's anatomy and with the human pelvis, and so like they're very unlike each other, right? Because the pelvis of an animal is not fused together like it is in humans. They're split apart. Um, so if I'm pulling up, you know, uh, so here's a T-Rex, but it's kind of like a not necessarily a great angle for this. Let me see if I can find another one that's slightly better. Um, they're all front views, because of course they are. Alright, let me come through here. Let me pull up this one anyway. I think it can work. Okay, so here's a big old T-Rex, right? And we've got like we just saw like the 2D reference, and then we've got one right here. But these plate-like bones uh, are kind of similar to the scapula. So let me go back to the dog here. Let me go back to the dog, and I can kind of show you on the dog skeleton. Here we go. Yeah, so they don't have a fused pelvis, right? When you're looking at many mammals, it's mainly primates that are going to have that fused pelvis type of thing. In other animals, we've got kind of like these floating bone structures, so to speak. Like they exist on there, but they're not necessarily connected. So like with humans, we've got a collarbone. Dogs don't have a collarbone. But yeah, in this area with the where the tail consideration is at, if you're trying to draw an anthropomorphic form, consider kind of breaking the pelvis into two separate areas and letting the tail be its own thing. So yeah, that's kind of my response to that. I hope that helps. Tail's relative large to the body. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to consider that this is one of those areas where like you have to fuse your imagination with your anatomical knowledge and just kind of play with that form. So, like if you're trying to draw anthro, crocodiles or anthro T Rexes or anthro orcas, these creatures with very large tails. Um, if you're drawing, like you kind of have to split the pelvis area, and then kind of let the tail be its own continuation of its own thing. So yeah, that's how I would answer that question. I hope that helps, at least a little. Could be. If I'm trying to look up, let me see here. Caudal view. Maybe they do, and I just didn't know. Okay, I might be spewing inaccurate information. It might not always split, but it does happen on occasion. Saurischian pelvis. Interesting examples. Let me pull this one up. Let me share this one with you. So here we've got dinosaurs with very big and long tails, right? So, and you have to consider like the muscles as well. So they've placed these, in the illustrations, right? So here we've got this giant pelvic kind of uh, bone with upper and lower kind of wings. So we've got the leg bones right here. We've got a femur area right here, but the pelvic is its own thing, and it's got these shapes that jut out into like the genital region. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm genuinely unsure of what all is going on there. But there are different styles. These are two very very different styles of pelvis or pelvic formation. In dinosaurs even. So look up the species you're trying to draw, and refer back to that. You know, and then these two-dimensional images kind of confuse me. Like if I could see it how it worked in 3 dimensions, it would be a little bit better. But yeah, so that might be something where like you might not be able to find a good example of a 3D model or something like that. You might actually have to go out to a museum or something. But yeah. All right. I've gone on for like almost an hour now, but I think that pretty well covers my thinking process on this at least. So yeah, I hope we were all able to learn something kind of useful at least. Feet, claws, and tails. Thank you all very much for coming. I'll go ahead and wrap it up for our YouTube viewers. If you like what you've seen today, consider dropping a like, comment, no, not a comment, or a subscription on my channel. This will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. If any of you are visiting for the first time, I run a YouTube channel as well. But yeah. All right. Thanks very much for visiting. I'm gonna call that the end of the stream. So thank y'all very much for coming, and I will go ahead and end the recording. Bye, YouTube. I will see the rest of you streamers in a moment.